and welcome to the ThunderCast. We have, of course, here all of the cast members today. Couch has come back from a extended sabbatical. Go ahead and tell everybody hello, everyone.
Hey guys, it's really great to be back.
Thanks for having me on, mate. I promise not to tease you.
You tease me, I break you.
I'm just happy to be here.
I'd like to thank, of course, Cameo and Jeb Jam in the chat right now. Let me go ahead and throw this link out on the Twitter, and we'll be good.
I see Jeb Jam on my channel sometimes. It's cool when you see familiar faces from channel to channel.
I'm also doing a Twitter promo, so there.
Trying to outdo me. I see how it is.
Yeah.
Type faster, mark faster.
I mean, to be fair, my Twitter's pretty much like defunct at this point because of how little I use it. I just kind of use it to lurk, so I don't really have anything to plug.
Yes, I've noticed. Sometimes you'll peek in like, hey, what's this madness today?
What's going on? What's poppin', Jimbo?
Whereas freaking Marm's like, oh my god, what madness is this? What has he done this time? But alright, so best way to speedrun the original ThunderCats? That's a good question. Let me go ahead and run through that. You're going to want to run through the Exodus movie, which I've uploaded on BitChute now. If you want to go from there, you're going to want to watch the Lion-O's Anointment Trials. That's a 5-parter, also on BitChute now. Followed by Mum-Ra Lives, Return to Thundera. Actually, no, Thunder Cubs, then Return to Thundera, and then key episodes about the Treasures of Thundera leading into Book of Omens. That's how you do it.
What about
That
ThunderCats?
sounds about right.
Or did you
All the
mention
highlights.
that?
I mean, I think I mentioned that. I have the UK cut.
Did you? I don't remember.
I may have missed it, but yeah, I have the UK cut uploaded on BitChute because Facebook took down my entire ThunderCast page because
Because you were sharing stuff?
yes, apparently without a warning.
See, Facebook is a lot nastier about that. I swear I have some YouTube video that has like a piece of classical music in it, and every single day I get a message. Warner has claimed your video. Warner has released their claim on their video. They like scour Facebook looking for that stuff every single day.
So it's not like, is it like Mozart? Is it something public domain, but Warner is
Yeah.
claiming it anyway?
Yeah, because it sounds like some public domain song in their library, so they automatically flag.
Actually, in my case, I just literally uploaded episodes, so I'm probably not all that innocent here. But they had it coming.
You said you had the UK cut of ThunderCats Ho that had like extra scenes in it, but was missing like the nunchuck scene, so it's not quite 100% cobbled together.
Yeah, it's not missing scenes or adding scenes. It's just a theatrical cut of it with no commercial breaks, last time on the show. And it did cut out whenever Panther News uses his nunchucks, including in the intro, by the way. And
Okay, so if I'm watching ThunderCats Ho, like the 5-part miniseries version, I'm not missing any scenes that were in the theatrical cut, am I?
if you are, it's things we don't even know about.
Okay, cool.
All right,
So
so
when you showed those missing scenes from like Exodus, and I'd never seen them before, I was like, oh
Yeah.
my god, missing scenes.
Yep.
I need to take a look at those.
well, again, you can watch the entire Exodus movie on my BitChute channel. I think I have it linked in my banner on my main channel here, but. All right, we're going to go ahead and dig into the episodes. We are covering 3 episodes this time because I refuse to do a 2-parter in 2 specific episodes. So we're covering the Wolfrat first and foremost. So who wants to do the lead into the Wolfrat?
I'll do a lead-in for the Wolfrat.
Hey, you better.
All right. So in this episode, we once again see the fan favorite Vulture Man presenting a plan to Mum-Ra, which involves a gas that shrinks whoever breathes it in. Vulture Man has designed a really interesting robot that kind of has aspects of both a wolf and a rat and can transform and disguise itself very well. There's a long kind of like infiltration sequence as we watch the robot, do a bunch of cool transformation scenes and sneak its way in, and the ThunderCats are shrunk, which leaves them vulnerable. Tremendous chase sequences ensue. Tigra is actually useful and helps Lion-O distract the thing. And the mutants come in pursuit while the team really do some neat work together stuff to kind of like they have to like head into the chemistry lab to find an antidote. Snarf is very useful in this episode and basically literally acts as their tank throughout the episode, proving again that he's very useful. The heroes come together and save the day, and it even has like a corny one-liner at the end at Snarf's expense. So I love it. Great
He
episode.
works so hard, and then they make fun of him at the end.
Yeah. And one
Big
thing I
fat
kind of
ass, you broke the chair.
Yeah. The one thing I really like about that scene too is I don't know if this was maybe just like something they didn't cut out, but it almost sounds like Lionel's like trying not to laugh when he delivers joke. He's like, Snarf, you took the like he's just about to bust a gut.
Did you have any commentary, Marty?
I actually did. The thing about the Wolfrat, I actually really liked its design, and I think they could have maybe pushed the like, I don't know, like scary element a little more. Because I mean, think about it, it's this like big, like honestly kind of uncanny valley-ish looking robot, like breaking into the cat's lair. They can kind of tell where like that like something's going on, but like they can't tell what. It would have been, and maybe this is an unpopular opinion, maybe not. It would have been so much better if that stupid robot didn't go every 2 seconds. Attack!
It says that when it's spraying when it's spraying the aerosol can into the vent. It says attack. It
just goes.
That's how we know it's a robot, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like it would have been better if it had just like kind of screeched. Because I don't know. I feel like it didn't really need to tell us what it was doing. It was very like, okay, you're turning into a rock, so the scanner thing can't find you. You're spraying the little canister. Actually, I have a funny story about the canister. So before the show, I was doing my research and I had it on my like second monitor while I was like working on something in Clip Studio, right? So out of the corner of my eye, I see Mumra pull a canister like out of his like cloak, I guess? Does his cloak have pockets?
Yes.
I don't know.
Mystical pockets.
It's a bathrobe.
Swear to God. I thought he just pulled out a grenade, gave it to the robot, and the idea was he was going to blow up Cat's lair. Because I completely forgot how this episode
Like a suicide mission? He's just gonna run into Cat's lair and pull the trigger and say like,
I swear to God, that's what it was. And then he sprayed it, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. But anyone else have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I like the Wolfrat too. I liked his design. I thought Pacific Animation, the way they did his transformations, because I mean, it's kind of a cheat. He can transform into anything to disguise himself. He turns into a rock. At one point, he turns into like a section of wall. But they make the transformation elements, the way his panels like flip around and what comes out, and the way his ears, which are shaped like radar dishes, the way they fold and unfold. It looks very convincing, despite the fact that it's kind of weird that this one thing can turn into whatever it wants. The only thing I didn't like about the Wolfrat was that it really didn't take much to convince Mumra of its abilities at the start of the episode.
Yeah,
Mumra's making fun of it.
Face.
Yeah, like Mumra's making fun of it, and then the Wolfrat just like shoots a laser into the cauldron, and Mumra's like, "Oh damn, he's got a laser." Well, that changes
like,
everything.
Woo.
Well, in fairness, that is better than what they usually cobble together, so I can understand. You gotta understand it's a low level here. You're building up.
Yeah.
I'm kind of convinced Mumra just thought it was funny. He's like, ooh, that's funny. Let's put that in Cat's lair, see what happens.
My favorite part of the episode actually is the first part, everything with the Wolfrat when he's infiltrating, because it's straight up Metal Gear Solid. Like he turns into a box, you know, it goes all Solid Snake, and like, but it's so that part's really good. Once they get to the shrinking part, you know, like shrinking episodes are like the #1 trope I think of 80s cartoons, because every 80s cartoon had a shrinking episode. Ninja Turtles, Real Ghostbusters, Transformers, even G.I. Joe had an episode. Oh yeah, Spider-Man. Everyone has a shrinking episode, and I think it's more what you do with the shrinking episode. Like the premise itself, even if it's cliche, if you do something really fun with it, then it doesn't matter if it's played out. And this episode, I think they kept us on our toes, because they shrunk the ThunderCats like midway through, which by the way was really well animated. I like the perspective that they used on it. Yeah, it's moving backgrounds, so the backgrounds are all cell animated, and we kind of I was going to phrase it as we go down with the ThunderCats, but let me see if there's a better way to put that. We shrink with the ThunderCats as the audience, so that we're kind of like falling to the floor with them. So instead of it just being like a third-person perspective where we're looking down at them and the background all stays the same, we're seeing everything sort of through their eyes, like we're in the room and experiencing with them. And that's a really complicated and expensive shot, but they went the extra mile and did it, and it looked really good.
And the camera's rotating. The camera's rotating as it's moving down.
No, and it looks so good. And the rest of the episode, it feels very spontaneous. It doesn't feel, by the numbers or run of the mill. Like they have to split up, and then the mutants show up, which makes everything worse. The Wolfrat's hunting them. They have to cobble together an antidote in Tiger's lab, but first they got to get to the lab. Then they make the antidote, but since they're split up, they don't all get restored at the same time. And then Snarf puts on like a suit of armor. But then Snarf takes the antidote, which turns him into a giant. It's like the episode is just going all over the place. It knows it's a trope, so it's trying to do something different, so you don't realize that it's just another shrinking episode. And I kind of appreciate that it did that. That's all I can. And also, Vulture Man did it, and he's my boy.
Yeah. Also, speaking of my boy, The next time I hear someone say, "Oh, Snarf is useless and he's a coward," I'm gonna show them this episode because oh my god, he was like on the attack. Like, when he did the thing with the candy fruit thrown in to distract him, like I thought he was gonna run away. No, he just ran up to the thing and tackled it. I'm like, did you not just see like the lasers coming out of it? Like, oh my god.
Snarf don't care. Snarf got stuff to do. Snarf has a suit of armor now.
Oh, you're lying. Be careful. And he's like, I'm gonna beat the shit out of this robot.
You gotta catch these Snarf paws. All right. Anybody else have any thoughts on the episode?
There's a great sequence. It's exactly 9 minutes in with Mum-Ra. It's when he's right before he restores Vulture-Man to his full height, where he's got the camera, and the camera spins around him as he's holding the cage up. So I just feel like this was an episode where they poured a lot of love into some like the evil villain shots and the robotic transformation sequences and the mechanics of it. The only thing I thought was goofy was there was like one scene where they were scooching along in a box while Tigra and Lionel were distracting the robot. Like they scooched 2 inches in a box, then they hopped out and said they can't keep them distracted forever, and then they ran off. Yeah. That was the only corny bit for me.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and read into here. All right, so this episode was written by C.H. Tringrove. Perhaps the most notable aspect of the Wolfrat is that it introduces long-term writer and editor Chris Tringrove to the series. Now, this is outside of the book. For anybody who's seen the image of Snarf Raw, he wrote that episode too, so he writes some pretty wild stuff. While it isn't his finest episode, it's still enjoyable foray into the world of miniaturization, a concept that crops up one point or another in most fantasy sci-fi programs. The great detractor for this strong concept is the episode's short running time. With only some 20 minutes to work with, a screenwriter must carefully balance pace. Unfortunately, no sooner are the ThunderCats miniaturized, they are reinstated. The Wolfrat does, however, offer many redeeming features. The eponymous transforming character is cleverly realized, and his various disguises add a real touch of originality in proceedings. Lino holding a gigantic sword is also an iconic moment, and there are some inspired animation sequences as the ThunderCats shrink, coupled with some great angles as they look up at their environment. Tringrove also proves his affinity with humor, and the Snarf MK1 Charger proves an amusing resolution to the episode. Snarf's gigantic engine is perhaps a little silly, but it facilitates some fun dialogue and provides the, by now standard, closing gag. The Wolfrat would surely have benefited from being expanded into a 2-part serial, with the first episode concentrating on the Wolfrat's impregnation of the ThunderCats fortress, and the second allowing more time to explore the many challenges of being miniaturized. Despite this, the Wolfrat is surely one of the more memorable episodes of ThunderCats to emerge from the first season, and it's a fitting homage to a range of literary sources such as Mary Norton's The Borrowers. Writer's commentary from Chris Tringrove. More combining of existing creatures. Let's think. What 2 animals are vaguely menacing? Ah, yes, a wolf and a rat. This episode was also use of the idea of reducing characters in size, which is okay in animation. It gives you a kind of new characters without involving any extra design work. This was the first episode I wrote featuring Mum-Ra, a character all the writers liked, I think, and cool when he did his transformation into an ancient Egyptian bodybuilder. However, you have to watch out that you weren't making the bad guys more interesting than the good guys, and it was always droned into us the cats were always the heroes and should occupy the majority of the screen time. It was fun to have Snarf saving the day. He was another character that all the other writers liked, and it was nice to have him step out of his lovable buffoon role for a little while. And real quick here, there's something I promised somebody on Twitter. Where did I put it? Sorry, I'm going to have to search for this thing again real quick. It was between Squid and I. Rainbow Squid Inc. on Twitter, and I were discussing about Snarf. And they discovered that there are female Snarfs in the series. And one of them said, since they have beards, are they space cat dwarfs? And I told her I would do this. So, Snarf ho, where's Lion-O? Never make me do that again.
Why have you assaulted my eardrums?
It hurts me too. But we'll have some more fun later on. Let's go ahead and get into the episodes of Feliner. Anybody want to lead this off, or do you want me to?
I'm just going to volunteer you. Take me for a while.
All right, so the episode's Feliner. It's centering around the appearance of brand new characters, such as Rotaro, a mutant general, and Snarf's nephew, Snarfer. We find out that the Snarf race has existed and expanded, living on a completely uninhabited planet. And Rotaro is coming by to find out why there's mutants on Third Earth, because he didn't commission that. We find out some very interesting things in this episode, and the ThunderCats have developed and are working on their new spacefaring vehicle called the Feliner, because puns are golden in this series. It revolves around trying to find something called the Mega Condenser to make sure that their spaceship is able to actually go into space. We don't know what the Mega Condenser does, but we just know that it's important. So this two-part episode tracks between that and Snarf having specific feelings of inadequacy and losing his place in the ThunderCat social structure. I really enjoyed this episode. Let me go ahead and pull up some images here. I really enjoyed these episodes for a few reasons. Number one, it's always neat to see the ThunderCats get new tech. And I like it when they explore Snarf, and they can do that using other characters as well, like Snarfer. Well, Snarf feels inadequate. He doesn't feel like he's contributing. He's thinking at this point of retiring because, he's old. And Lion-O doesn't, quote-unquote, need him anymore. He feels like he has nothing to contribute. And introducing new villainous foils, such as Rotaro, who tends to put all the other mutants in their place, is a complete and utter dickhead. And everybody just sits there and takes it. So I really enjoyed the series, or these two episodes. I enjoy what it brings out, and I enjoy the reconciliation at the end of it.
Are we talking about both episodes together, or are we just talking about part one right now? Okay. Yeah, so Feliner, I mean, one of the things I like about this episode, but it's also almost a problem, is that this episode introduces a lot of, deepest lore or just mythology elements. It gives us a lot of character updates, the bigger picture of what's going on, but it raises as many questions as it answers. So, we find out if the mutants have been hanging out at Castle Plundar on Third Earth, what about all the other mutants who are back on Plundar? This gives us our update. The first thing Rotaro says when he's introduced in the Rat Star, when he's talking to Vulture Man, he's like, Vulture Man, why didn't you call me earlier? I could have taken care of this a long time ago, And so we know that Slithe basically just wasn't contacting Rotaro. So the mutants on Third Earth aren't really stranded there like they've been acting like. They could have called Rotaro for a pickup anytime they wanted. They just don't like the guy. And we figure out pretty quickly why they don't like the guy. And yeah, we get the military structure. We know that above Slithe is Rotaro, and he's kind of like the supreme commander of the mutants. He's the Serpentor to Slythe's Cobra Commander, which kind of makes me hate him, because I like Slithe as a leader, just the same way I like Cobra Commander as leader. So when someone higher up comes in to usurp their authority, that sort of ticks me off. But Rotaro was cool. The way Pacific Animation animated him, because Pacific Animation used to be Topcraft Animation, and Topcraft Animation animated Rankin Basses, The Hobbits, and Flight of Dragons, etc. But the way they animate Rotaro's face when he speaks, his lip sync, it looks very similar to Gollum's from the Hobbit movie. Mm-hmm. And sometimes Slithe has the same thing with his lower jaw. And I don't know, it just kind of gave me that vibe from it, and that just made me feel all warm and fuzzy, even though I hate that character. But the problem is that when they introduced this thing, where they let us know that the mutant army is still out there back on Plundar, Rotaro is still commanding that mutant army, and they're still doing whatever they're doing out in space. But then Rataro leaves after Feliner, and I think he only comes back like in one episode at the end of the season for like a cameo. I don't know if he comes back again after that. And then we just never really get another update with what the rest of the mutants out in space are doing. They're just kind of forgotten about, and we hyper focus on the mutants on Third Earth again. But I like that part about it. It's just weird because they also they destroy the Rat Star in this two-parter, but then it shows up again like later in the season in the Mumrana episode, and it's just there, and Rataro's not there, and it's like what the fuck. And I think a bunch of episodes got jumbled up because like you're talking about Snarf's feelings of inadequacies, like he's like, oh, I can't help anybody, I'm just dead weight. Like, Snarf, you literally saved the day in the previous episode, the one right before this. And then like there's an episode right after Feliner where they mention that they don't have a spacecraft to go out into outer space. I kind of think like maybe the episodes got jumbled up out of narrative order, which happened a lot in syndicated animated shows.
You know, I actually agree because I'll be completely honest. I thought both the Feliner Snarfer, like it's not both. Like I thought the Feliner Snarfer, the Rat Star, and Rataro. I thought these all occurred during season 2. So who knows? Maybe they did get mixed up.
I think that if I recall correctly, what they were worried about in the second season was longer distance in space travel. The Feliner is able to get a certain amount of airtime as opposed to something else. But fun fact that I want to go ahead and throw out here specifically before Marm gets started, because it touches a bit on Pellecreepy's or Mark Pellegrini's things here. Rataro was somewhat designed based on Splinter, oddly enough.
I can see that.
Instead of giving him the design of a Japanese Japanese general, though, they decided to give him the design of a Mongolian, which is why he looks the way he does. So it's
really unique.
It's basically an evil.
I got a Tilda Hun vibe from him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of an evil Splinter that if you get smart with him, he will try to kill you.
Well, that makes sense because his ancestor is revealed to be Ratilla. Ratilla the Hun. Oh, it's all coming together now. Yeah. Yeah, I like the rat size. There's a scene where he's fighting Lion-O, and he says, like, the Eye of Thundera is no match for the rat size. And I remember, and he uses the rat size to basically bully everybody around. They're this incredibly powerful weapon. And I remember when he said that as a kid, I thought that meant the rat size were, like, a bigger deal. Like, they were the mutants' answer to the, the Eye of Thundera. Like, they were some sort of evil opposite. But no, they're not really anything. They're just a weapon that he kind of, like, brags about that doesn't stand a chance. Yeah, the animation, especially in part 2 of Feliner, looks really good. It looks better than part 1. The mute tank is really cool. I love the vortex shells. I wish the mutants had used the mute tank more often, but not really. I don't know. Overall, I like Feliner. I like that it's basically this huge info dump of deepest lore. We learn about the planet of the Snarves. We learn that the Snarves were used by the mutants as slaves, which is kind of dark that they would bring that up, whereas they're more like... I'm not going to say servants on Thundera, but they're have equal rights on Thundera at least. But so there's this whole aspect of what the hierarchy is and how Snarves are used by different cultures, and then they've got their whole home planet. We learn Snarf's real name. Fuck Snarfer, I hate that guy. Why did they have to bring him in?
He went to Snarf College, doggone it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm actually going to argue with you on this one. I like Snarfer. It's his voice I can't stand.
I mean, it's everything about him I can't stand.
Snarfer's voice. Oh god.
I mean, the episodes are really good. They do a lot, and I'm glad that they made it a 2-parter because it's kind of if they tried to fit that all into one episode, it would have been too much. I wish they had followed up more on it. I think the episodes are good, but a lot of the stuff that they introduce is never followed up on again. Like the whole thing with Rataro just disappears after this 2-parter, except for his cameo at the end of the season. Where did he go? I guess he went back out into space with the other mutants. He just left Slithe and all them behind. Well, we just don't hear from him again.
Yes and no. He actually shows up in ThunderCats Ho, but my personal theory, it's never been. I think he died at the end of it.
Oh, okay. Well, I gotta get to season 2 then, so I can check that out.
Because at the end of it, like, the Tuskas are who he's going at it with, and they shoot his ship down for a second time, and it crashes in the water. And from that point on, you never see Rotaro again. You see the Rat Star, but you never see Rotaro ever again.
You got hammer-handed.
Oh no.
Well, and you know what? I definitely have to watch that episode, and that's going to be my headcanon, because I just don't like the guy. I like Slithe a lot better than Rotaro, just like I like Cobra Commander a lot better than Serpentor.
My point of contention with the statement about his weapon, because I'm a nerd like that, I don't know why they keep calling them size. They're not size. Size, that's not what size look like, and it's certainly not how they function. Technically, if they're any weapon, they're like miniature Chris blades. Rant over.
Well, yeah, it's because the center blade on his rat size are like miniature daggers. There's like thin, right? They're thin and razor sharp, but they're also wobbly. But like a sai is supposed to be, it was originally what, like a gardening tool, right? That
Yes.
peasants would use, and you use it for disarming an opponent. If they come at you with a sword, you can use the sai.
It has no edge
catch
on it.
Yeah. So whatever he's got, yeah, you're right. It's not really a sai, but it's whatever.
That's just me being a pedantic dick. Now, let's go ahead and look at the chat here. Rotaro versus TMNT Raphael. I'd say Raphael because he's a lot more violent. I actually don't find Slithe being a cook as ruining his character. I think, if anything, that actually fleshes it out. Because, like, even, say, with the original G.I. Joe comics, Cobra Commander was a used car salesman before he went into organized terrorism. So, it doesn't really hurt him, for my opinion.
It's working with as someone who worked in a restaurant, I can tell you working with the general public is as good of a villain backstory as any. Because before I quit my job, I could see myself turning into Slithe just a little bit.
Especially with those shifty eyes he's got. Do you have this type of stew? No, I don't. Get out to my kitchen.
I mean, it does kind of like give Slithe this richer backstory that they don't really dwell upon. I think they actually mention his being a cook at least one time in another episode.
They do
like,
make fun of it.
Says something like I'll send him back to the galley where he belongs. But it's like this idea that Slithe, he has this I don't know, a self-esteem problem almost, that he's just a cook, but he wants to prove that he can be a great general. So that's why he's the one who's leading the front lines against the ThunderCats, because he wants to prove himself. And then, Rat-Taro shows up and puts him in his place, and he just kind of fails over and over again. But he really, really wants to prove that he's not just a cook. He's a great general. And poor guy.
He never could make it to Mutant Ramsey status.
It's fucking raw.
It's raw, monkey. Where's the snuff sauce? I did stop. All right, so anybody else have any other thoughts concerning Feliners Part 1 and 2?
Yeah,
it bugs me that Rotaro doesn't have a cartoon rat nose. He has a realistic rat nose.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like a long, like, human snout. But anyway, I think the Feliner 1 and 2, now granted, I don't remember too much of Season 2 except for what we've covered here on the ThunderCast, but I think Feliner Parts 1 and 2 are honestly kind of my favorite episodes out of Season 1 for a couple reasons. First of all, I felt like the animation was just top-notch in this episode. Like the fight scenes and everything, like especially the part where Lion-O's like jumping around fighting Rotaro. It's so good.
It was
like,
really good.
You can tell they put a lot of thought into this episode. And the other thing I like is a lot of the character interactions, and I feel like they kind of pushed the characters' emotions a little more in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to bring up a couple, there's a scene where Snarf mentions taking the Mega Condenser, snagging it from the Rat Star, and Panthro literally like picks him up and starts like dancing around for joy, and I was like, that's another good one. And there's this other interaction I just love between Slithe and Vulture-Man, because I kind of noticed that if you really notice throughout the episode, Rotaro treats Vulture-Man completely different than the other mutants. Like he treats him as a peer, whereas with the other mutants he kind of treats them as underlings. I don't know why that is, or why it wasn't explained, but I don't know. I'm just gonna go with it.
I like that dynamic too. Yeah,
I think it's
that
because
Vulture-Man
Vulture-Man's
is
competent.
Well, because you notice that Vulture Man, whenever he's the one he never cowers from Slithe when Slithe yells at them. He will openly, like, he'll contradict Slithe, he will insult Slithe, but whereas Jackalman and Monkeyan, when they do that, they'll immediately like cringe and be like, "Ooh, we didn't mean it." Whereas Vulture Man, he stands his ground against Slithe. You get this feeling that Vulture Man's like higher up on the food chain than people realize, or he's maybe more of a hired contractor and not a soldier. And maybe that's why Rataro treats him with a bit more respect. Or just because he's a snitch, and that's pretty much what he did in this episode. He snitched to Rataro.
sorry, him and Rataro are dating. I don't make the rules. But anyway, there's this great interaction between him and Slithe. Slithe is like, "Once this is all over, I'll have your feathers." And Vulture Man, he doesn't say anything. There's no dialogue, but he just kind of gives him this side eye and like smirks. He's, "Yeah, right, buddy. You're gonna have to go for my sugar daddy to get to me." He knows he's untouchable, and it's so great because he just milks it through the entire episode.
This is why it's great to have Couch on.
Yeah, look at me, I make the funny. But anyway, and then the final scene where I feel like they really kind of like push the bar on letting characters really have emotion was the scene where Snarf is about to leave. Like, that is the only time. Now, granted, I need to rewatch the whole series. That is the closest I have ever seen to like Lion-O or one of the main characters like actually crying on screen. Like Lion-O, like it messed him up when Snarf was about to leave. Like he like it kind of showed him like his eyes looked different. Like it looked like he was like starting to tear up, and it looked like he was about to like, I don't know, like have like a complete meltdown when he left. Like I was like, oh no, baby, it's okay.
So something I liked about this guy
like psych.
Yeah. Or I interpreted it as he couldn't be away from them for more than a minute before he realized he had to go back. What I like about this is, in an action cartoon, action cartoons generally emphasize like what a person adds to the fight scenes, and this episode kind of makes the point that Snarf is a part of the family. Like, you don't care if Grandpa is the tech guy when you go fight the bad guy. He's Grandpa, right?
He's Grandpa. Yeah.
What I liked about that entire exchange at the end of the episode is even Panther's like, no. What do you mean you were leaving? You can't leave. I just started liking you. But because Panther was the solemn character, he accepts it, and Lion-O starts tearing up, and Tigra puts his hands on his shoulder like it's going to be okay, and Snarf's like, no, never mind. You're my kid, and I'm staying. That's how this works.
Lion-O's crying because, like, now who's going to do my laundry?
Oh, come on. That's what the burbles are for.
Yeah.
No, I like the fact that they give dimensions to characters like that, because there's a lot of times you'll see people decry cartoons of other generations as being too stiff or not emotional enough. The truth is they really don't know. They just look surface-wise, and they don't really understand what's going on here. And I like the fact that they fleshed that out a bit more, and they gave Snarf a bit of a deeper reason to stay, and they showed that he, in fact, is valued by that team. But at the same time, they don't begrudge him his own desires, and they don't tell him, well, Snarf, you can't go. We want you to stay here. And we have literally his king telling him, well, if that's what you want to do, I won't stop you, but we're going to miss you.
Yeah. That's why nice. I love Lion-O so much as a protagonist, because, obviously, he's very rough and tough, the big fight boy. But they also allow him to have, like, real emotions and empathy. And it's not considered a sign of weakness.
He
cares about his people. His people are his family. They're not just his soldiers.
Correct. All right, so...
I guess I'll go.
No, go ahead.
I didn't have anything to add.
Okay.
I was just killing the empty space.
All right, so let me go ahead and read what we got as far as the Feliner goes here. Let me pull this back up. The Feliners, Parts 1 and 2, written by Stephen Perry. He's the gentleman who wrote Safari Joe. The series' first and only two-part serial ranks among its finest offerings. Writer Stephen Perry successfully combined three exciting story standards into one: the introduction of a villainous Rataro, the planet of the Snarfs, the ThunderCats' new spacecraft, the Feliner. Doubling the screen time facilitates an expansion of storytelling opportunities, and for once, an epic tale isn't destined for disappointment due to a rushed ending. By far the most beneficial addition to the series is Rataro. Not only is the character perceived or perfectly conceived, but he is also given great dialogue, not least in the scolding of Slithe and the other mutants. "A sitting target and you bungled it! Call yourself a gunner! You'd better get back as a cook!" For the first time in the series, we see the mutants as a viable threat. Under the command of Rotaro and his Rat Star, the mutants' interplay with their master produces some memorable scenes, and their dissenting nature is explored to a great effect. The episode opens with a tantalizing sequence, and within a few seconds we see a new planet of Snarfs, numbering 43 in total, an alien spacecraft, and a new mutant, deliberately confusing the viewer and setting the perfect tone for the episode, one that will push the series in a new direction. It's also interesting to see that the ThunderCats have now progressed their salvage technology to the point that space travel could once again be possible. This would give the series writers new storytelling opportunities and prove vital in future episodes. Feliner offers an array of highlights. The scene where Snarf, now revealed to be named Osbert, stumbles upon his nephew Snarfer outside of the cat's lair is an emotional reunion, and his speech, "But you were just a baby. I must be getting old," is perfectly judged. At the close of episode 1, it would perhaps have been nice to see the series' first cliffhanger. However, the story seems to have been paced so that both episodes can be viewed in isolation. Fortunately, this works within the context of the episode, and the idea that the ThunderCats will steal the mutants' hyperspace megacondenser, thereby making their spacecraft operational, is an ingenious one. The opening scenes of the second episode boast some wonderful background art as we see the wreckage of the Rat Star. Once again, the episode regains pace, and Rataro's angry display of power to his fellow mutants is beautifully realized. His cold, unresponsive stare before blasting them with his weaponry is truly menacing, and Vulture Man begging for his colleagues' lives is sublime. There's a strange yet effective repeat of the climax to episode 1 played out over the 7 minutes into the second episode, but this only serves to illustrate the attention to pacing given in the first episode. Feliner also features some superb direction from Pacific Animation Corporation, and the scenes where the Thunder Tank and Mutank do battle are bursting with energy. As mentioned, this episode succeeds where others have failed by littering the narrative with subplots that actually have time to play out. While Mum-Ra's appearance may be a little unwarranted, his meddling does add to the proceedings, and his motivation is simply wanting to disrupt the ThunderCats really sums up his character. Mum-Ra, or rather, Lion-O attaching a hook line to Mum-Ra as he is dragged through the sky is also a nice touch, although it's a shame Mum-Ra seems to abandon his quest with relative ease. Overall, Feliner is a ThunderCats classic. Rotaro, the new Snarfs, and the Feliner would all live on in the show, making countless return appearances, and this is a testament to Stephen Perry's writing. Snarf's declaration that he would leave the ThunderCats in the conclusion moments of the episode is surprisingly touching, the tears in Lion-O and Snarf's eyes being a nice touch, and even the least enthusiastic supporters of the Snarf character must have surely been glad to see him return. "What in Thundera would you do without me?" Writer's commentary from Stephen Perry. Although I was aware that Leonard Starr was writing a 5-part story, I was surprised when Peter Lawrence suggested I combine a couple of my ideas into a 2-part story. These were the planet of the Snarfs. Snarf's home planet and extensive family is revealed. New characters include Snarfer. And Rats, a new evil mutant based on a rat, is introduced to organize Slithe and the others and make them more menacing. Since it meant a double assignment and 2 paychecks in the bag, I was all for it. I believe I had pitched The Planet of Snarfs as a title, but that was changed. Jim Meskimen did a lot of the secondary character design, and the hour-long show came out quite well. If you ask me, I was particularly like the opening of the first part, and the music. The music written for the first part opening sequence was used in many other shows too. It was a big show, introducing lots of potentially ancillary merchandise. We had Rotaro, his spaceship the Rat Star, we also had a new bunch of Snarfs, we had the Feliner, and one story Ronkin Boss was getting a lot, so was LJN. They liked the whole thing so much they gave me more money to write. I got a raise! I wrote the 2 shows in the space of 3 weeks, and Peter Lawrence did his rewrite. Now all of these points right to the true nature of what the cartoons in the 80s were generally about. Commercials for toys. Funny thing about this, and I'll touch on that later, we cannot get around that simple fact. The thing was built around the franchise, around the success or failure of Plastic line of toys. I do not know how successful the LJN line of ThunderCats toys was, but I'll bet they did better than Silverhawks did for Kenner. Rotaro was completely my idea, and I think it was another one of those no-brainers. Cats and mice. Mice are not so threatening, but everyone hates rats. Mutant rat guy. A no-brainer. I distinctively recall a conversation with Peter and the mutants. Jules wanted them used, and all the writers complained about it because they were obviously ineffective. They could never win. And if you saw them in a show, you knew you knew from the get-go they would mess up. It would fail, they would screw everything up, they would lose. It sort of made any suspense impossible. Just a glimpse of Slithe, one knew the mutants were bound to fail. By the time I wrote The Planet of Snarfs, to me that will always be the title, the evil mutants were sort of a joke. We called them the Three Stooges. They were, to Rob from Blackadder, about as menacing as a little bunny with the word boo written on his forehead. The character design of Rotaro was quite different from what I had envisioned. I had seen much more of a Splinter character from the original Ninja Turtles in Rotaro, an older Oriental, but still a Mongol. Either Jim Meskimen or Bob Champ latched right onto the Genghis Khan take for Rotaro, and definitely went that route as opposed to Chinese or Japanese. I had called him a Mongol-like warlord, but actually described Japanese-style sensei. I certainly approved of the final Rotaro, though. It's a good example of how collective cartoons are. Yes, Rotaro sprang from my head, but the finished product was a result of other people's inputs, ideas, and revisions. I was talking to Peter about new toys for the line. I had suggested the Feliner. Everyone loved the name. Again, a right-on no-brainer. How do we produce it? Well, there's a problem with the mutants. They need to be upgraded somehow. I told Peter on the phone that I had a character in mind, Rotaro. To tell you the truth, I named him Ratan. Peter suggested Rotaro, Lion-O, Rotaro. It made perfect sense. I was dumb of not having thought of it, and I had him using two sides because I was ripping off myself. I had written a comic book, a proposed series that never went anywhere, never got published or drawn, or even out of the proposal stages for Marvel. It was called Turbo Psy. It was about a character who used high-power size and explosive hand-to-hand combat. The comic had two sides and the function you see in the show, such as crossing them and focusing an X-beam, the beam that could capture people. These were all in my comic proposal. When I created Rotaro, we had these sides and used those weapon tricks. Snarfer and the other Snarf, Snarf Oswald, Snarf Bert, Snarf Ernie, all that sort of hypernated name thing was all Peter Lawrence's idea. He named our Snarf Osbert. As a British thing, I think. No one in America liked it or thought it as funny as he did. I had a planet full of Snarfs in mind for one simple reason. You could add tons of different characters and have them all look the same. Look like Snarf. Same toy mold. A dozen different characters. Just change the lettering of the blister pack. Now, fun thing I want to comment on here is he talks about toy utilization and introducing things as toys. Let me go ahead and throw this on screen. We never actually got a Feliner action figure. We have a promo, and they were in the prototype stages, but only two were ever known to exist. They would never... Well, it's actually tucked up, because the way they designed it is actually kind of neat. The feet are the landing gear, so when it's hopping around and it gets into flight mode, it folds up. This never hit toy shelves. We also never got a Mutank. We never got anything like that, because ThunderCats was divorced from LJN in terms of properties. They only introduced things when they thought it would be neat. There's a reason why we also never got Lunatax. Go ahead.
I was saying that's really interesting to hear, because I'd always assumed that these things got toys, because this two-part episode, it feels like, a two-parter from Transformers, like Key to Vector Sigma, where they introduce, the Stunticons and the aerial bots, and it's all just new toys, new toys. And this episode, they introduced the Rat Star, they introduced the Feliner, and they introduced the Mutank, and they introduced Rotaro, who he got a toy, right?
Rotaro got a toy, but Snarfer did not.
Snarfer, yeah, okay. And all the other different Snarves that he talked about, like Egbert and Oswald and all them, you just kind of assume when you go back and watch these that, they all got toys. Kind of odd to find out that they didn't. But I'm looking at that Feliner you're posting, that prototype, and I'm reminded that those Lion-O and Panthera toys are 8 inches tall. That thing must be humongous to fit those toys in it. It's probably why they didn't make it, the cost of it.
Correct. Well, at least the size of it. As far as making it, they made the cat's lair, and that was a bit of a mess. Let's take a look at the chat here real quick before we close out on the episode discussion. Well, unlike Jaga, Snarf can't appear before Lion. Give him time. Snarf's power is infinite. I'm Snarf. I kill when I wish. Panther.
with time.
Panther wouldn't be able to yell at Snarf to take his foot off his Samaflange. True. I'm going to binge those reviews. Go for it. Highly recommend, of course, of Action Drag. Yeah, absolutely. Galvatron was violent and abusive. Yes, because he was insane. Who was the better fighting rat, Splinter or Rotaro? I'd have to say Splinter, because he knows the Curly maneuver.
Oh my god, that episode.
The Curly maneuver. All right, so with that out of the way, let me go ahead and pack in that image that's on screen, and we're going to go into our character retrospective on old Slithe here. So who wants to lead off the character retrospective?
Can I?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I already kind of talked about it because I forgot we were doing the character retrospective on him today. But yeah, Slithe is a character who there's something about him. You notice that throughout the first season, all the mutants get an episode where they go solo, where they go out on their own. Like there's Jackalman's Rebellion, Monkey's Bargain, and then the Superpower Potion with Vulture-Man, where they all rebel against Slithe or they do something by themselves. But Slithe obviously never has an episode where he just like ditches his army and tries to work on his own. Sometimes he's talking to Mum-Ra, but he's a general. He's a leader. He's never going to ditch his soldiers. He may abuse them and yell at them, but I mean, even like Jackalman's Rebellion, that episode, when Jackalman goes groveling back to them, like it's so weird. His punishment is that Slithe takes his boots off and throws them out the window at the end of the episode. Like, you sure showed him, Slithe. I mean, there's this thing that Slithe, he's nothing without his subordinates, and so that's why he will berate them and he'll intimidate them, but he still needs them. And I already talked about how he used to be a galley cook, and now he's basically leading the front line against the ThunderCats on Third Earth, and he's got a lot to prove. But it also kind of explains why he sucks and why he always loses, is because he's not a good general. He's a cook who wants to be a general, and that's sort of all the reason you need to know why he can never win and why he always fails, is because he's just way out of his league with what he's doing. And that's there's not too much, I don't think, to say about Slithe. They gave us just enough detail about his background and his history, and we kind of see his dynamic out the gate. I wish he was more of a physical threat. In the earliest episodes, he's swinging his tail like Whiplash from He-Man, and he seems like he can fight pretty well. He goes, I think he fights against Panthro in the Brute Man episode, or one of those earliest ones. But then after that, he's just he can't fight at all, and he runs away and he gets knocked over, and he's just kind of turned into a stooge. I wish they'd kept him going as someone who could still fight. And that's all I can really think about Slithe.
For me, what's kind of interesting is there's this theory, like, are characters individual characters, or are they collectively a character? Like Team Rocket collectively are a character, where it's three different people, but they kind of play off each other in such a way, if one of them's gone, the dynamic doesn't work anymore. What's kind of most interesting me about the mutants in general is how each one of them is given little bits and pieces, and I guess Sly's almost like the equivalent of like a Leonardo for the bad guy team, where you need one kind of like stable, guy with a plan in any group dynamic. So he doesn't do anything like really over the top, like how Vulture-Man's always building cool weapons and Monkey's always like ogling and kidnapping women, or Jackalman's always being a coward, right? But his presence basically gives the mutants kind of like the focus they need to like go get the ThunderCats, and just the fact that he's the guy who barks at the orders at them. I don't know. It also kind of helps. I think that his design seems to be the most stolid of all of them. Like, all of them are really buff guys, but he's got like this inhuman Hercules build, where like he's got muscles on top of muscles. So that's always good visual communication, to just say that the biggest and strongest one is the bad guy leader, which ties into kind of like the bully theme for them. The ThunderCats are a family. The mutants are just who's the biggest bully in the playground, essentially.
Yeah. Also helps that he has no neck.
And he wears a tiara. I mean, anybody who can wear a tiara and pull it off, you got to respect.
We stand a king. Okay, come on. That wasn't that funny.
I think it was. Okay. I disagree.
Okay, going off of the tiara point, one of my favorite things about Slithe is that he, the ThunderCats writers could have just gone he's just a big dumb brute or whatever, but they also added this kind of like diva aspect to his personality. Like,
they did.
Maybe Lio can tell me which episode this is from, but there's this thing where like Mumra is like ranting at them about something like, "Oh, you stupid mutants, you messed up again." And Slithe, again, there's no dialogue, but he just kind of like rolls his eyes and like walks away, like kind of waving his hands in the air and like mumbling to himself, like obviously mocking him.
I can't remember what episode that is, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay, just he just the fact that they added that whole aspect to his personality is what makes him an interesting villain that just kind of stands out from other like stock cartoon big bully type villains.
I remember there's one specific episode where it was, I think it's the episode Trapped, where the Thunder Kittens are trapped in a suspension capsule of all things. And the mutants, of course, they find it. And Mumra shows up because he wants to, you know, be a dick. And the minute he's like, hand it over, they just turn to him and raise their weapons. They're like, oh, you thought.
Yeah.
You leave the scene and the mutants are like laid over all their broken furniture. Obviously had just gotten whooped. It's like moments of insurrection like that really make it worth it.
Yeah.
All right, who else has thoughts about old Slithe here?
He's a character who had like just enough to make him interesting, but he's not shallow, but he's not deep either. He's that I don't know, that middle bowl of porridge.
A bowl of porridge. I guess that's a way to describe Slithe.
Well, you talk about his physique, his design. Marmaduke was talking about it. He's designed to be strong fat. Like he doesn't have a design. He doesn't have like defined ab muscles. He's got kind of a gut, but he's got huge arms and he's got pecs. And I think that is an interesting design for him. Because that's what like people in the World's Strongest Man competitions look like. You know,
Yeah.
people who lift up like trees and chuck them across a football field. Those sorts of dudes. They don't look like, yeah.
You're right.
They're all strong fat looking, and so that kind of gives you this feeling that Slithe is like the heaviest of them. He's the heavy of the group, and when you have guys like Monkey and everyone there is jacked, even Jackal Man, who's supposed to be a coward, and Vulture Man, who's supposed to be a nerd, and yet they're all super buff and big, and yet Slithe here is this gargantuan, you know, strong fat bruiser. That does the design speaks to him, yeah.
All right. Well, I like Slithe as a character for several reasons. Number one, he does have a level of competency to him. It's not the greatest level, but at least he tries. That and just in his general design. I know we talk a lot about design in general, but he's filled with what is called the Rankenboss goodness. He just looks like one of the one of the trolls from the Rankenboss Lord of the Rings.
Goblins.
Yeah, one of the goblins. One of the goblins from the Rankenboss Lord of the Rings. Like it's almost like they just took the mouth on that and stuck it on Slithe, and it just gives him such a very distinct design. And like with the other mutants that they've had as stock background characters, we've had other Monkeyians, we've had other Jackalmen, but the Reptilians, they don't share the same body Slithe does. Slithe's form is dimorphic compared to theirs. It's completely different. And a lot of people don't notice that. But all the other Jackalmens, the Monkeyians, they all look like that. They look like Jackalman and Monkeyan, but the Reptilians don't look like Slithe. So I find it interesting. They found it unique enough to where, compared to all the other designs and even the 2011 series, he looked the closest to his original design because it's so iconic. So I really enjoy on a design level, and I enjoy him as a villain when he's written competently because he tends to have some very amusing schemes, and he's kind of like the old biddy of the neighborhood in the sense that he's always watching things, like in Thunder Cubs, in the episode series of Thunder Cubs. Like he's the one that stows away on Vultureman's Rat Star because I have to look after my interests. He's just the old biddy that just sits there and watches the neighborhood devolve into madness and just sits there and snickers while petting his cat.
Good for him.
All right, so if we don't have anything else about Slithe, we're going to move on to the pain with no gain here. Anybody else have anything else to cover here?
Oh boy.
Yeah, I did my homework this time. I read those god-awful comics, so...
Well,
I read them too.
I am so sorry, but we got to do it.
It's okay.
We gotta go.
I used a very dubiously legal website to do so it didn't cost me anything.
All right, so ThunderCats He-Man issue 5. We're getting down to the end of it, boys. So who
This
wants
is a group therapy session right now.
More
We're
like
all
a-
just kind of counseling each other. Like, it's okay. It's
group,
okay. It's
group
over.
angry session? So
It's not over.
Who wa-
The next ThunderCats series we're covering is even worse.
so who wants to lead us off on this debauchery and failed abortion?
Oh, I can do it.
Yeah, you better do it. You got us into this mess.
Last time on ThunderCats He-Man Kai, the last episode ended with the spirits of evil, who are a mystical, magical idea of evil, showing up as 80-foot monsters in outfits with giant swords to smash the Grayskull and all the He-Man characters. This issue, the first issue, issue 5, mostly concerns with all of the extra characters, not Lion-O and He-Man, holding off the attack. And they kind of do the classic, let's pair up a character from ThunderCats with a similar character from He-Man thing. So you've got Man-at-Arms hanging out with Tigra and Panthro, because they're billing them as, oh, these are the weapons guys. My least favorite thing is they kind of have Chitara and, I don't know, the...
Tila.
Tila, all right, Tila. So, like, oh, it's the two girls. And the two girls kind of, like, have, like, an alpha bitch cheerleader thing going on between them.
That, like, especially not... Like, I can't really speak for Tila because I know nothing about the Masters of the Universe series. I did not watch it. I didn't read the comics, but like, I don't know why they did that with Chitara. That is so unlike her.
She has this line where, like, they're charging into battle, like, and she's with Tila, and Chitara says, like, it's really sweet that Daddy made his little girl the captain of the guard, but some of us like to fight solo. Like, she's being, like, really bitchy, you know, and it's like unprovoked.
Never say that.
Like, Chitara doesn't act that way. It's completely counter to her personality, and it's totally unprovoked.
Well, you know, obviously it's because they're women, and all women are like that.
Women hate each other.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna stab you.
Whenever I see another woman, I'm like, Master Sir Dominance, insult father.
It's like that Family Guy Return of the Jedi where Princess Leia is sitting there and they bring in Mon Mothma and Princess Leia's like, I don't like her.
Well, that, and, you know, it goes against the zeitgeist of ThunderCats as a whole, because their entire aesthetic is we fight as a team. Some of us like to fight solo. It's like, who are you?
And that's the thing, is that they do the pairing up, like Marmaduke said. Like, they put you know, Wily Cat and Wily Kit with Orko, because I guess they're supposed to be the childish characters. But every single character, they don't get along and they snipe at each other for no reason, and then they become friends. But it's every one of these pairings they do that. And, like, can't one of them just not be dicks to each other? Like, there's no reason for them to be acting this way. It's just lazy and bad, and I hated it.
Grug need make conflict, so Grug feel good about need conflict.
Who can make 80s characters fight? Ooh.
You know, maybe we're missing something. Maybe Monkeyin wrote this.
Right.
It is true. I am Monkeyin, and I wrote this.
Have you guys noticed how Monkeyin is just brown everywhere in this comic? It drives me nuts.
You can't just point out when somebody's brown, Marmaduke.
It's his fur.
The colorist.
Man, maybe they couldn't tell Monkeyin. The colorist couldn't tell Monkeyin and Beastman apart. That was kind of what I was thinking of why he was miscolored so much throughout it. But yeah.
Freaking Marmaduke out here with his casual mutantism.
Hey, I did casual sexism just a minute ago.
That wasn't casual. That was not casual.
Oh, women hate each other. Hey, Marmaduke. Okay.
It's true. I'm women, and I hate each other.
There's a reason why you're a #1 Marmaduke fan and not #1 Mary Worth fan, huh? Is that it?
Oh gosh, I hate Mary. Wait, no, it's Sally Forth. Sally Forth.
I can't even make a joke. Oh my god.
We're all terrible.
#1 Kathy fan.
Oh, I forgot. It ends with Skeletor and Mumra combining into Mum-Ator. And just this design annoys me because Skeletor and Mumra have, like, Mumra's face isn't a skeleton, but it's kind of, I don't know, rotting away a little bit.
But they keep drawing it like it's a skeleton. You notice that?
Right. Yeah. But I feel like there's still, like, enough of a overlap between Skeletor and Mumra's design sensibilities that you could, like, they both have, like, the cool hood thing, right? Like, I feel like there's got to be some way to combine these two into a guy who looks like an intimidating, blending of aspects. And it's just kind of a messy design. It's got like some of Skeletor's, gross spiny chesticle things, whatever they are, and then it's got like a purple, purple and red ragged cloaks, and 6 sets of horns and 1 golden spike at the top. Like, it's way too many extra little dinky shapes slapped on everything. Simplify. And I guess issue 6 is just Lino and He-Man get back together, and they go through all the different universes, and they beat the bad guy, and the comic blessedly ends. And we got a little glimpse of the He-Man Superman universe, I think, too.
I mean, that entire multiverse thing I just thought was really fan wanky and dumb. It was like, let's imagine if Adam was Clark Kent at the Daily Planet. That's what that would look like. Let's imagine if Chitara was Agar on Eternia. That's what that would look like. And it's just these one-page things of like, I don't know. It just feels like this whole comic just, I've said it every time we've reviewed one, it reads like fan fiction, bad fan fiction.
But can we at least appreciate Jagarus? Like the freaking.
You just want a Jaga waifu, admit it.
Not at all, but it's more like the 2017 DuckTales Mrs. Beakley. I must break you.
I don't know, and it still has all those dialogue problems, especially with Skeletor and Mum-Ra, where they're making these like cute and quirky asides and they're quipping, and you can't read that dialogue with their voices from the cartoon because it's so counter to their personalities.
The one that just annoyed me, he said, "Oh, I need the key to unlock the orb," and then he says, "Once I get it and unlock the orb somehow," right? Like you're the one writing the plot. Don't have the villain say it's ridiculous to unlock, like that doesn't even make sense. As like, I know he's trying to go for like, oh, this is so silly kind of humor. That doesn't even make sense. That would be like someone saying, I have the key to the door, somehow this key opens the door. Isn't that goofy, guys? What an 80s shows this is. Keys open doors.
Wow.
We're quirky. Is this a crossover episode? Freaking Mr. Peanut Butter. I prefer him. I would prefer to have Mr. Peanut Butter write this. It would be more competent.
I'd be fine with
Mr. Peanut Butter, not
Mr.
Mr. Peanut Butter. Because I know Mr. Peanut. But...
Mr. Peanut Butter from BoJack Horseman.
BoJack Horseman, yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't watch that.
He has that part where he talks like he's still reading a script from a sitcom because he's an ex-sitcom actor, and so he'll do things like when he visits BoJack at his apartment, he'll be like, "BoJack Horseman, is this a crossover episode?" And BoJack's like, "Get the fuck out of here." I can't deal with this shit right now.
That's the entire show.
That and the horrifying depression. But anyways, moving on. So, yes.
Before we move on, we got to talk about the money shot of the whole miniseries. I guess it was all leading up to He-Man and Lion-O combining their sword powers and saying, "I have the power beyond power." Like,
please clap. We have a Jeb Bush moment up in here.
Please clap.
Oh my God! Please clap. Yeah, please clap. It's just that was so cringy. Of all the cringe in this 6-issue miniseries, they reached maximum cringe at the very end there, and it died the way it lived. Just awful.
Miserably, without pity or mercy, because we have angered God, and this is our punishment.
I honestly have like no opinions on these two comics or these two comic issues because I don't know, maybe it's because I was reading them when I was kind of tired, but there is just so much going on in these panels with just like paragraph long dialogue, all these scenes that have this weird like sparkly crap in the background. Like, I could not tell what was going on at any given time. It was just, my brain was just in a constant state of sensory overload. I literally could glean nothing from this.
These last 2 issues are like, they're supposed to be this big, chaotic, massive brawl battle of all the toy characters and cartoon characters fighting each other, and like every page is just like 24 characters on it and a big brawl and a big melee, and you just get numb to that after a while. It feels like you're looking at a Where's Waldo book and you just keep turning the pages.
Oh, there's Bionatops. for some reason.
Yeah, right. Ooh, snout spout. I found snout spout.
Here, and also let's
I've had
address
enough.
the continuity issues they threw in that sucker. You see literally the treasure of Thundera, which shows up in the second season. You see Ratilla for some asinine reason running around with the sword of Plundar. I don't know how many drugs it took, but I think it took all of them.
Yeah, we talked about the bad continuity. It's like it's almost like it's taking place like after the treasure of Thundera has been introduced. So that's like what somewhere in late in the second season. But Lino, he even says in this issue, when he's at the very end during the denouement, when he's talking to He-Man, he says, like, actually, He-Man, I'm only 12 years old. And like, but by that point in the series, the cartoon, you know, he wasn't acting like a 12-year-old anymore.
Right.
He had grown up. It's not worth caring about.
Right, yeah.
It makes me very angry, and I will care about it because angry thing. See, this is my consistency in this, right? I'll complain about Roar, right? I'll complain about newer versions of these cartoons, but the thing is, I will also complain when they're handled poorly in other aspects. And unlike Roar, this is the inverse issue. Instead of treating ThunderCats super goofy overall, they want to make it a bunch of edgelord tripe, and I have just as much of an issue with that as I do making it a bunch of hee-hee silly fart jokes. Because these people don't know what they're doing. They're just trying to pander to an audience that doesn't either remember the property well or are just dumb enough to buy these things because they need their dopamine fix. Both are unacceptable.
It's ThunderCats, but it's got blood in it, and they stab each other, you know, and blood comes out of the wounds. That's so
They're all
cool.
dead.
It makes me feel like an adult when I like these just enjoy the
Watch
cartoon.
ThunderCats.
Just enjoy the cartoon. It doesn't matter if you're an adult or if you're a child. If you got that much in terms of issues with what you watch, then you need to go to therapy. Like, that ain't helping.
Man,
I hate this book.
We
I hate it so
survived
at
much.
least it's over.
For now.
But
until,
what are we? What are we
done with
reading
the,
next?
Are we done with the bad ones?
Yes. What are we reading next? Well, I mean, we could easily just stick our fingers right back in it. We could just go immediately to Dogs of War.
Ooh, I read that when it first came out, and that was the one that actually got me to stop. I had stuck with Wildstorm's terrible ThunderCats books all the way up through Dogs of War, and that was the one that made me finally tap out.
Oh,
So-
bless you.
I
You are far stronger than me.
mean, and I was, so I'm almost morbidly curious to go back and revisit it and see if it was exactly as bad as I thought it was when it first came out.
No, it's worse.
Oh, okay, well then it's even better.
All right,
I
really
want to cover Dogs of Wars too because I want to complain about it.
awesome. So I guess we'll cover. You guys want to do it 2 issues at a time or 1 at a time?
That's maybe
I'd say
me.
2 to kind of like.
Well,
like-
it's what specifically something Couch wants to complain about. So I think we should leave that decision up to Couch. So let's go ahead.
Sure.
What would you prefer, Couch?
Two issues an episode sounds fine.
All right then. Real quick to
Go
Firepaw.
faster.
Given the different sword lore and powers, would the Eye even be able to work well together? The Eye of Thundera works with anything that's good. The issue with the power of Grayskull is the power of Grayskull in and of itself isn't necessarily a good power. It's morally ambiguous. It's morally neutral. That's why Skeletor's so obsessed with getting his hands on it, because you don't have to be a good person to have the power of Grayskull. And from what I've seen of the...
And
Go ahead.
I mean, what the hell even is the power of Grayskull? I mean, I watched the 2002 series where they kind of tried to explain it, and they had that flashback episode with King Grayskull, and then he died, and his like soul turned into this like glowing sphere, and then his priests took it into the castle to hide it away, and that's what powers the sword and turns Adam into He-Man. But is it just one dude's really awesome soul? Is that the power of Grayskull?
It's that and the power of the Council of Elders, which are the guys you thought were priests.
Yeah, those guys.
In the original lore, there's more to it. I'm sure Grim will probably show up in the comment section after this gets fully uploaded and be a little more descriptive. I'm not completely sure. And while Grayskull does have a dimensional nexus, as Kecker's boy just pointed out, that's not the power of Grayskull itself. It's just something within the castle. The sum of all the knowledge of the ancients. Okay, thanks for that qualification, Grim.
Okay,
But-
well, that makes sense.
So it's just knowledge. So it's the matrix.
Just power.
It's the matrix of leadership. Okay, I gotcha.
All
Prepare
right,
for.
well, that's a good question. So all these like 80s cartoon power sources, the power of Grayskull, the matrix of leadership, the Eye of Thundera, like which one would like be the boss of them all.
I mean, when you measure it out per feet, it would be the Eye of Thundera.
Hey, Thundera, I mean, so the Matrix has access to the Allspark, and the Allspark is Primus, and Primus is the creation god. I kind of wonder if maybe the Matrix would be more powerful, but then whenever they use the Matrix, it just blows shit up. It doesn't really do anything else, and it gives life sometimes. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It depends, number one, on which version of the Matrix we're talking about. Secondly, it depends on how we measure the power, because the Matrix's ability, in terms of specifically the G1 cartoon, is, of course, wisdom, which is why it was able to beat the hate plague, because the only thing to fight hate is knowledge. You know, got to throw that in there. As far as the Eye of Thundera, it's got the most insane feats out of most of the stuff, while the Matrix is part of Primus in the comic continuity. Primus is kind of a chump. Like, he's the force of creation, but we don't really know if he's the force of all creation or just the Transformer creation.
I mean, I don't know if he was all creation, because I know Simon Furman in the UK canon, he had Primus and Unicron, and Unicron's the force of entropy who wants to erase all of reality, and Primus is the one who wants to like seed life throughout reality. But I don't know if that means he just created the Transformers, if that just means he created everything.
Well, that's the interesting thing about Simon Furman, is he always does like a sort of Jack Kirby must make everything cosmic, because he also wrote for a little bit of the UK ThunderCats, and he did the same sort of idea where we have to have opposing forces. We have the Eye of Thundera, and we have the Scimitar of the Slain. It's just really cosmic type stuff.
Nice.
I mean, for the longest time, I actually kind of preferred the way the cartoon. I mean, I know we're doing like Transformers cast right now. Sorry. I thought that was a tiger growl or a lion growl. I'm like, oh, we got a soundbite.
See here, real quick, we have.
He's in my house right now.
Grim says, Matrix needs to be recharged after use. Also true. Grayskull's power is supposed to literally make you a god, a master of the universe. But when we measure that out, like the one time I've seen actively was, of course, in the movie. It didn't do so well for Skeletor by the end of it. So I think the biggest problem we're going to have in measuring like powers here is some of them are unknown unknowns. We don't know what the power of Grayskull is capable of, and we don't know the limits for the Sword of Omens. So that's why we're always going to be at a stalemate in arguing that.
I mean, it's like what did not Jack Kirby, what did Stan Lee say? Is like, who would win in a fight between two characters? Whoever the writer wants to win.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like, it can be silly. It's fun to argue, as long as it's not with Dragon Ball Z nerds, because those people can't write or read. But Goku strong.
Can't blame them, though, if Akira Toriyama can't write or read.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say it, but you did. All right, so...
I respect him. I love the man. I'm sorry, Dragon Ball Z nerds.
I'm not. You watch garbage, you get what you deserve. Let's see here. Okay. Come on. Okay, so next episodes we're going to cover are going to be Mandora and the Pirates.
Ooh, fun one.
And Return of the Driller.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, next month, we have to cover a hero. So what hero character do you want us to cover, chat? I will leave that decision up to you.
Pretty music.
Don't you lie to these people.
We don't have sound bites.
I mean, we could make some, but then I might get copyright claimed on this sucker like I did when I tried to play the freaking video clips.
Come on, Tim. Goku's not that bad a father.
You're right, he's worse.
I mean, he was at least he was worse. Now Piccolo, that's a good father.
Piccolo is best
guy
dad
knew how to do it.
in that series, yes.
Kind of like that because in all of Western media, stepdads and stepmoms are vilified. You know, the wicked stepmom or the abusive stepdad. But in Dragon Ball, you know, Piccolo's the stepdad and he's all cool. He actually gives a shit.
Actually, we got Pumaira, which we did less than a year ago, I think. So we'll probably not do the Emperor of the Thunder Kittens for that.
I haven't gotten to season 2 yet, so I'm not fresh up on my Pumaira knowledge yet.
So let's go with John Caulfield's recommendation. Let's go with Claudius, Lionel's dad.
Oh, okay.
Where does he show up in season 2? I can watch ahead to see that.
He shows up in the episode Shadow Master.
Shadow Master. Okay, I'll just watch ahead.
But he shows up in season 1 as well, in Return to Thundera.
Yeah, I finished season 1. I haven't started season 2 yet, so if we're going to do Claudius, I'll just skip ahead to that one episode. just to remind myself what he did in it.
Awesome. So we're covering Mandora and the Space Pirates. We're covering Return of Driller. We're doing a character retrospective on Claudius. And we are doing Dogs of War, parts 1 and 2.
Oh, the good and the bad.
Shoot me. So we'll go ahead and do that. And we're going to go ahead and give the chat an extra 30 seconds here to put out any questions in case we need to answer them. And then we will move on. And be about our business. And I can get my art done for today.
Bada bing.
By the way, Couch had no idea that you had a new Twitter account.
Yeah, no, I feel so bad because I was like, oh, hey, Lyle, it's not an issue, but who's this dude? That was like the exact message I sent. I was like, who's this? So I can, like,
Jane and
introduce
Akira?
myself. Oh, that's Marm. Oh.
You got like 3 Twitter accounts, Marmaduke. You've got #1 Marmaduke fan, #2 Marmaduke fan, Jane and Akira.
I think I lost #2 though, or at least I don't have the phone that I used to set up #2, so I don't know if I can ever get that back.
That's
because you had #1 Marmaduke fan locked. Because what'd you say? You said
I know.
something on
Okay,
Twitter?
I thought it would be funny to change my name to Elon Muskrat as a joke on the Elon Musk accounts, and Elon Muskrat was too close to Elon Musk, so it instantly got suspended.
Also, real quick, Marm, on your #1 Marmaduke fan account, you might want to stop following at Fungasm. We just found out he's a sexual predator.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I've been keeping an eye on that too, and I was just like, okay.
I was seeing a little bit of that when you were posting it.
Following Lio has really opened my eyes up to the amount of pedophiles that exist in the world. So thanks for that, buddy.
I think it's amazing. And it's amazing when people will follow me for the nerd stuff and like, wait a minute, this man argues with monsters all day. What did I sign up for?
Yeah.
And that's why my follower account goes up and down and up and down and up and down. All right, so Shadow Master, the good, bad, and alien. All right, so since we ain't got no questions, we're going to go ahead and lead on out of the chat. We appreciate you guys coming by, and we'll see you next month.
All right, bye, guys.
Oh, shoot. We talked about all that stuff live on the air. Whoops.